Psalm 23. We're going to start at verse number 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord. Somebody shout it. Forever. Say it again. Forever. Let the enemy know it tonight. Forever. Amen. Anybody ever needed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation in your life? Nobody here has never? Brother Chris? Anybody else? Sister Cherie had it, but it wasn't physical. They were doing it with a pump. I was there that morning when she collapsed at the gym. The need for mouth-to-mouth resuscitation is a very critical time in someone's life when they have stopped breathing from whatever the situation might have been. What happens during oxygen deprivation and the oxygen is not flowing through the body as it should? Between 30 to 180 seconds of oxygen deprivation, you may lose consciousness. At the 1 minute mark, brain cells begin dying. At 3 minutes, neurons suffer more extensive damage and lasting brain damage becomes more likely. At 5 minutes, death becomes imminent. I want to talk to us tonight about a few words out of Psalms 123 or 23 and 3. He restoreth. He restoreth. The word restore means to refill, to build back, to reverse, to return to the starting point or to the original beginning. Now, Brother Danny could probably come up here and give you a little bit better scenario than what I could give you right now because of his knowledge of computers. But in my life, throughout a few years, I worked with computers for about 25 years. And there was times when you are trying to do something on the computer and it's not processing. And it gets slower and slower. And then maybe you've done something and you don't know what you did. All I did was just drag my mouse across the screen and now I have a blank screen and nothing will come up. I've turned it off. I've tried all of these things. Nothing seems to be working. Nothing is happening. We've probably all been there sometime if you have had to deal with the computer. There's something that was established in that computer system called a restore point. And if you mess it up, if you get things all scrambled up, if you can't figure out the end from the beginning and how to straighten out the situation that you got yourself into, you go to the settings and you click on Restore Point. However you have that set up, you can set it up for a day or two, sometimes a week, sometimes a month, and you set the point. Every so often I want you to make a backup of this computer system just in case I do something wrong or just in case something happens through the system and I lose what I've got here. It will take you back to your default settings. However, there's something very amazing about the restore point. It will take you back to the system's restore settings, but you don't lose your files. You don't lose the things that you have put into the system, so to speak. The things that you have spent time making and designing and all of that is not lost. All that is done is it takes you back to the restore point so your system can start functioning normally again. So in other words, you get to start all over again, but with all of the knowledge and the blessings that you've already attained. Genesis chapter 42. Joseph commanded them to fill their sacks with corn, speaking of his brothers who had come to Egypt to get grain to take home to their starving family members. And he said, restore every man's money into his sack and give them provision for the way. And thus they did unto them. In Exodus 22, commandment from God says, if a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for the 1 ox and 4 sheep for the 1 sheep that they stole. Everybody say restore. Nehemiah 5:11. He says, restore, I pray you, to them even this day, their lands, their vineyards, their olive yards, their houses, also the 100th part of the money and of the corn and the wine and the oil that ye have exact of them. In other words, everything that was taken, restore it back to them. There is a concept in the Old Testament. You don't read a lot about it. Not even sure if ever in the history of the Bible if the children of Israel actually carried out this commandment. There is a year that God established with the children of Israel called the year of Jubilee. But ever read that in the Bible before or heard someone talk about it? Every 50 years, at the end of the 50th year, everything that had been taken from an individual, just say for instance after 30 years on the farm, all of a sudden things went really bad. There was a drought and there was no crops and you couldn't pay your bills and someone else came and bought the farm and took over your cattle and took over your sheep and now you're just a hand working on the farm with everybody else. You're a hired servant, so to speak, working on your own farm, but it was all you could do. There was no other choice. At the end of 50 years, everything that you had lost would be restored back to your family name. The farm would come back to you with whatever it had become. If it had prospered over the last 25 years since you lost it, you get a prospering farm back into your life. Everything that was lost, no matter what it was, even as Nehemiah mentioned here, he said your vineyards, your olive yards, your houses, the money, the corn, the wine, the oil, everything that was lost returns to that individual at no charge. You get it all back at the end of 50 years. Everybody say restore. It's an amazing concept because what God was trying to establish with the children of Israel is we can only handle defeat and sadness and despair and tragedy and trouble for so long. If you read the news today, the loss of the captain on the sheriff's department, life got to be too much. It became overwhelming. Things that were coming. Anybody ever had life kind of do like this right here and then like this and then like this and then like this and like this and like this and pretty soon you felt like, oh my God, I'm going to be crushed under the weight. So God said, I can't let this continue. I can't let a man or a woman end their life in despair and frustration and heartache and pain. I've got to create some kind of a restore point. So he said, every 50 years, everything that you lost will come back to you. He restoreth. Now in Psalm 23:3, he didn't just say he restoreth. He said, he restoreth my soul. He didn't say I'm restoring your physical body, nor did he say I'm restoring your mind. He said, he restoreth my soul. The word soul, when you look it up in its original text, original Hebrew writing, comes from the word naphash. The word soul means breath, to be breathed upon, to be refreshed as if by a current of air. And the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Breathe, soul. There's a term that happens. I wish I was a doctor up here or one of you nurses that have better knowledge, because some of these words I'm just like, Lord help me. How do they say all this stuff? It's like jumbled up letters that aren't in the right order. I'm not going to try to say it. Dysnopia or something like that. Did I say it right? I looked at Tina. She's a nurse. It's most often associated with a disease of the respiratory tract, such as airway obstruction, pneumonia, other diseases in the lungs or the airways. A range of other conditions may cause or exacerbate this disorder in a sheep's body. or in a human's body, or in any animal's body for that matter. And these other causes can be physical exertion, pain, trauma, severe systemic diseases, acidosis, heat stress. These are things that cause the breathing to be disturbed, cause the breath to go out, causes the individual or the sheep or the animal to not be able to get the oxygen needed to their brain. As I said earlier, it doesn't take less than 5 minutes without the right oxygen throughout the body. Permanent damage is done, possibly even death. So, David said, He restoreth my soul. That which has affected me spiritually. What he was saying was, when the enemy knocks the wind out of me, when something in life knocks the breath out of me, He restores my breath. He restores my soul. Anybody ever had the breath knocked out of you? I remember playing football. I was quite small. Shouldn't probably been out on the football field at all. Dale, forgive me for using you as an example. His name was Robin. We were in the 7th grade, and he was the size of Dale. I don't know what his parents fed him or gave him to drink. Maybe he took a dose of steroids every day. I'm not sure. Dale has not done that. But he just grew up that way. He's a grown man. This kid was whatever you are in the 7th grade. What, 13? 12, 13, 7th grade? He was massive. It was like Goliath on the football field. And sadly, Peggy, he was on the other team. But I was about, I don't see anybody that size. I was like Nico's size. Yes, 7th grade. Very small. But if they got the football in my hands, nobody could catch me. Except Robin, who just walked right out in the middle of the field. Casey, I wasn't looking. My head was down. The football was tucked under my arm, and I was wide open across that field because I knew nobody's going to catch me. Just run. And the next thing I knew, bam! And everything was black. And when I woke up, my neck had shrunk from the normal 5 or 6 inches to about 2 inches, and I was laying flat on my back on the ground. Knocked the wind out of me. Couldn't breathe. Remember one time as a teenager, I was working in the restaurant, and there was some objects on the very top shelf in our storage room. We had big, large shelves built out of 2x6s and 4x4s. There weren't no little flimsy racks. I was on the very top shelf, Brother Freddie, and I was trying to get something off, and there's like 3 other rows of these big shelves with about 4 feet in between each of them. And so I was probably as high as this, the ceiling height, up on that very top shelf. Don't know what happened to this day. The next thing I knew, I was falling. I blacked out, I guess. I was falling, and I hit all 3 shelves coming down on my back and then hit a solid concrete floor. And I remember laying there looking out of the doorway of the storage room into the kitchen, and nobody saw me. And I'm going, until I thought, I'm just going to lay here and die. I look like a fish probably flopping around on the shore when you pulled him up, and I'm gasping to get just a little bit of air, but nothing would come in. Everything was just locked up. It is a scary feeling to get the breath knocked out of you. It's a very serious situation to get the breath knocked out of you. David wrote again in Psalm 51, hide thy face from my sins, blot out all mine iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence. Take not thy Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with thy free spirit. Restore. Breathe back into me the joy of my salvation. Anybody ever just get so tired being a Christian? God forgive everybody who just lied. Anybody ever been tired of just being a Christian? Okay, if you're putting everything into it, you're going to get tired. You're going to get weary because the enemy's going to be fighting you and you're going to be pushing and he's going to be shoving back. You're going to be like the disciples trying to get across the other side of Galilee, and they rode 10, 15 feet forward and the waves shove them 20, 25 feet back, and you just keep pushing and he keeps pushing and you push. Guess what? You can only do that so long and you get tired and you get weary. The muscles begin to burn and the mind starts playing games with you. You've been there, I know, because I've gotten your phone calls in the past 2 or 3 weeks. You can sit there with that little pretty face right now. I'm like, oh, everything's great in my life, but I know better. You're talking to the one and you're looking at the one that's been talking to you and you're saying, I'm weary, I'm tired. Life is just coming one thing after another, and I can't seem to catch my breath. Yes, sir. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation. Anybody ever just feel like you're just living for God, but you're not happy, you're not excited, you don't have that fire that you had when you first started living for God, and it's just like, hey, I'm doing it, I'm getting it done, I'm just living for God, that's what I'm supposed to do, but there's no joy in it, there's no excitement. You didn't wake up this morning saying, boy, I hope I run into somebody today that needs God. I hope I come across somebody that's sick in their body and they need prayer. I'm going to lay hands on them and God's going to heal them. No, maybe you woke up this morning and said, God, just help me make it through another day. If I can just make it, maybe I can just make it if I can get it to Sunday. If I can just make it to the next service, if I can just make it. Everybody say restore. Jeremiah says, I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thy wounds, saith the Lord. These are things straight from God. These aren't just something that we just made up here tonight. He said, I'm going to restore your health. Anybody need your health restored? God bless all of you. We have a duty. Somebody shout, I have a duty. I have a duty to help my brothers and sisters. You don't believe it? Starts in the very beginning in Genesis. God says to Cain, where's your brother? He knew where Abel was. God wasn't really that oblivious to everything that just happened. It was like, oh, anybody seen Abel? Hey, we need some angels down here to help us out. We're looking for Abel. He knew exactly where Abel was. He was asking Cain, do you know where your brother is? Do you know? He wasn't asking him where he physically was. Well, in an aspect he was, but even deeper than that. Where is he? Where is he spiritually? Where is he right now? What's happening in his life right now? What have you done, Cain? Am I my brother's keeper? Am I supposed to be Don't you just love smart aleck people? People that just constantly sarcastic answers. Why can't you just be real? All Cain had to say was, I messed up, God. Whew. I messed up big time. I didn't even know what I was doing. All I did, I just swung at him like that. I just hit, and then the next thing I knew, he was on the ground, and blood was pouring out. God said, I know. His blood is crying from the ground to me even now. I think God is still asking that question to the people of God today. Do you know where your brother is? Do you know where your sister is? Do you pay attention to anybody else when you come to church, or is it just all about you? Oh, I just need to get something from God today. I hope I get more from God today. I hope God comes down and just touches me today. Brother Charles, I won't preach a message. Oh, my God. He threw one at me today. I was sending him just a little clip and told him I was excited about the message tonight. He said, I pray the 23rd Psalm every day. I've prayed it for years. He said, I also pray the Lord's Prayer every day. Prayed that for years. Well, I have too. And then he said, Psalm 23 is for me. The Lord's Prayer is for others. So my Lord, Brother Charles, it never crossed my mind that that's what was happening there. But do you ever get past Psalm 23 to the Lord's Prayer, where you're praying for everybody else's needs and praying for everybody else's situation and praying for everybody else's hurts and pains? Or it's just constant, oh, it's me, it's me. We sing a song. Y'all remember it? I know I sing a lot of songs. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me. Come on, God, it's me. Get all the angels over here. Look, it's me. Oh, here I am. Oh, it's again. It's me. It's me. And then it even got worse than that. It's not my mother or my brother or my sister, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's just me. It's just me. Nobody else needs you, God, but me. And we shouting around the aisles and Sometimes I don't even think we thought about the words we were singing. They just liked the nice little tune. It was like, woo, sounds great. But when's the last time that you stopped praying about me, and was saying, oh my God, there's people that are in way worse situation than I'm in. There's people going through things that I have no idea of. Galatians chapter 6 and verse number 1 says, brethren, sisters, if a man be overtaken in a fault, if a man messes up, if a lady makes a mistake, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. Can I paraphrase that for you? Brothers and sisters, if one of your brothers or sisters be overtaken in a fault, they stumble and fall, they make a mistake, put the breath back in them. The enemy has knocked them out. Restore them, he said. If you are spiritual, restore them back to health. Restore them back to life. I want to encourage you today. Quit thinking about you all the time and say, God, is my brother, my sister need help today? I want to help put the life back in them. Brother Cody, I want to breathe into you and bring some life back into you. I know you're tired. It's Wednesday night. He didn't stop there. He said, bear you one another's burdens. So fulfill the law of Christ. Doesn't mean it's a suggestion. It's just, if you feel like it, if you want to. You don't have to worry about anybody else or pray for anybody else or be concerned about other people's lives, because after all, you've got a big mess of yourself to deal with. Nobody else is sick like you. Nobody else is going through what you're going through. Nobody else is facing the dilemmas that you're facing in life. Only you. There's an individual that I knew in life. Every time you talk to them, they would begin talking to you by saying, you just don't know. You just don't know what I'm going through. Brother Lacey, I just got to tell you, you just don't know. You don't have any idea of what I'm going through. There were hundreds of times, and I'm not lying when I say that I've liked to have said, you got a minute? Let me tell you what real people are going through, okay? Let me tell you what others are facing. Let me tell you what other people are feeling, okay? Everybody's going through stuff. Everybody. And I know when we get in the middle of a situation, we forget. It's just easy. We do it. And we've all been guilty before and probably said to somebody, you won't understand what I'm going through. Those of you that were with us Sunday afternoon, evening, Brother and Sister Mallory, Brother Mallory began to give some of his personal testimony. And I watched the faces of those that sat there to listen to him tell, as a young boy growing up, his father was extremely abusive and would beat him almost every day. He said, I would be asleep in the middle of the night, and he said, suddenly I would feel the fist of my father drag me out of the bed. He would beat me senseless, throw me back into the bed. He said at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the school bell would ring, he said my body would begin to tremble and shake all over because I knew I'm going to go home. And when I go home, my father, he's going to be there and he's going to be waiting on me. And when I walk in the door, the next thing I'm going to know is the bludgeoning hand of a father, a fist pummeling my body. The thing that he failed to tell you was his father was a Pentecostal preacher. That's the part he did not tell you. That he had to go service after service on Sunday and watch him get up there and talk about how great God was and how amazing the Lord is and how much God is love, and go home and beat the daylights out of his wife and his children. See, we're all going through things. Sadly, many times we put on our little fake mask. When we're around others, we smile big. We pretend like everything's great. But could I ask you for just a few minutes tonight, take your mask off. Just reach up there and pull it off. Pull your mask off. I'm looking at wonderful people here tonight that are going through things. That life is almost too much at times. And the burdens of life and the circumstances and situations are extremely heavy in your life. But there's a promise from the shepherd I'd like to give you tonight. He said, be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God. For he hath given you the former rain moderately. He will also cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. In other words, he's going to combine all the rain together and give it to you in one big load. And the floor shall be full of wheat, and fats shall overflow with wine and oil. And I will, everybody say, restore. Say, restore. Listen to what he's going to restore. I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten, and the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. And ye shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, that hath dealt wondrously with you. And my people shall never be ashamed. For ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed. I want somebody to know that everything that the enemy has tried to do to take from you and destroy what you have tried to build in life, that God has already put a promise in his word. He is the shepherd. He said, I'm going to restore to you everything that the enemy has come in and destroyed and devoured and tore apart. If you believe that, give him some praise today, right now, and say, God, I thank you that you have the power to restore and bring back to life again. There is nobody like our God. The disciples had just gone through the most traumatic time. We don't talk about this very much. I don't know how we've missed this in the story. Their Messiah had been arrested. They watched it happen. Peter put up a fight for a few moments. He tried to cut a man's head off and he missed and got his ear instead. I hope you don't believe when you read that scripture that Peter purposely just said, let me see if I can cut that man's ear off. He wasn't going for an ear. Friend, he swung. And when he swung, the man ducked and he cut his ear off. He intended to kill that man. One of the last known miracles, maybe the last that's even recorded in scripture, said Jesus just reached down. I mean, I think if I was in that situation, I was standing there, Brother Freddie, and I saw a man pick up a person's ear and stick it back on, I'd be like, you know what, guys? I'm not a part of this. Y'all can arrest who you want to arrest, do what you want to do. I'm done here, okay? No, they continued on what they were doing. He was arrested, dragged out of the garden. They called a council, a jury meeting right in the middle of the night, kind of like our court systems do in our houses and senates. Pass a law at 2 o'clock in the morning. They sentenced Jesus in the middle of the night while everybody else was asleep, called in the ones they wanted in to be there for the vote, to make sure that they got what they wanted. Sentenced. By the next morning, he was back and forth between Herod and Pilate, and then whipped with a cat of nine tails and crucified. And the disciples were just like, what in the world? The Messiah. We believed in him. We said, this is God manifested in the flesh. This is what we've been telling people. This is God. And what? Here he is hanging in open shame on a cross of Calvary. He died. They buried him. Then as they're trying to process this tragedy in their mind, they've run, they've hid, they've scattered, they're all over the place. They're trying to process all this. Oh my God, he's dead, he's dead. What do we do now? What do we say? Where do we go? What town can we move to? We got to get out of here because everybody's going to be looking at us. When we come out in the public, they're going to be asking questions. What about it? What about this great Messiah? What do we do? Where are we going? The next thing we know, Mary Magdalene comes running in the room and says, he's alive. He's not dead anymore. I just went to the tomb. The stones rolled away. Jesus is alive. I've had to process something like that just once in my life, thankfully. My wife was pregnant. We waited a little bit before we announced it, and yeah, we're good here. So we announced to everybody on a Wednesday night, we're going to have a baby. Everybody's excited. On Saturday, my wife woke up with morning sickness, and it got worse, or Friday, and then Saturday was worse, and then Sunday was much worse. So my wife was like, oh my goodness. Well, there were some things that happened in her body starting Wednesday night after it was announced, and she was miscarrying. So we laid there weeping, crying. We were sad. Oh my God, what a tragedy. I mean, I just can't believe this. What in the world, you know? And you're trying to think, what did I do wrong? Did I do this? Did I do that? You know how we do. We're trying to come up with all the reasons why. And so on Monday, she'd already called her doctor, and they said they're going to perform a process to make sure everything is good and clear, so there's nothing left inside her body that could make her any sicker. And so as they're getting all that prepared, I had already looked some things up, and they told me, they said, now, this could be very heavy-duty procedure for the lady, and she may probably be very exhausted, and she may need help to the car and those things, and she'll need rest for a couple of days. So I'm sitting out in the lobby, and, I'm twisting my hands, and I'm waiting. All of a sudden, the door opens up. My wife comes out, and she's got this big, huge grin on her face, and she's like, come on. And I'm like, huh? Excuse me? Are you all right? I mean, what did they give you in there? Okay, because I'm expecting them to open the door and say, Mr. Norris, could you come help your wife? And we're going to, help you get her out to her car. And I said, babe, hold on. She said, stop. Just don't talk. Just keep walking. I'm like, what? So we're walking through the place, and my wife don't like anybody to look at her. She don't like to be noticed. So she's like, and I talk loud. Sorry. And so she's like, just be quiet and just walk. So I'm trying to be obedient, and I get almost to the door, Eric, and I said, wait a minute, I got to go back and got to pay the bill because insurance only covered this amount, and I had whatever left over. And I said, and she said, would you just come on? There's no bill. And I was like, okay. So I walk outside, and I'm like, what? And she sticks a picture in my face. And I'm like, okay, just a bunch of black and gray, bunch of blurry stuff. And she's grinning like this big. And I'm like, what? What are you trying to show me? Like, I don't know. She said, it was twins. And I said, huh? And she said, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, no, you're not, babe. I thought she was like having a mental breakdown. I said, babe, no, you're not. You miscarried. Remember the process that's been done? And she's like, I'm not. She said, just get in the car. So we get in the car, and she said, I was pregnant with twins. I miscarried one of the twins, but I still have one of the other ones still in me. And I'm like, what? It flipped me from being full of remorse and sadness to unbelievable joy at the same time, and I couldn't control it. And so I busted out laughing, and I laughed for probably 30 or 40 minutes. I could not stop. It was uncontrollable because your emotions can only handle so much. And when things are going bloom, bloom, bloom. So here's the disciples, and they've got all this hurt and all of this pain and all this tragedy that they're trying to process. And all of a sudden, Mary bursts in the room and said, he's alive. He's alive. He's not dead. He's not in the tomb. And they're like, what? There's no way. I mean, there is way, but I can't believe that. I saw what his body looked like. We heard the stories and the rumors that people were telling, and there's no way. And they're like, yes way. He's not in there. We just looked in the tomb. So here goes disciples running to the tomb. They're trying to process all of this, just like you and I are trying to process everything that has happened in life. One of their best friends had just committed suicide. They all feel guilty, maybe partially responsible. Judas is dead. I mean, we were with him every day. I mean, we watched him heal the sick and pray over people and cast out devils. And then he committed suicide. He went and hung himself. And they're trying to process all of this stuff in their minds. Then Jesus becomes a magic act of appearing, disappearing, reappearing. 1 minute he was here, and then he's gone. And then all of a sudden he appears over here, and then he's at so-and-so's house, and then he's not there. And then he's over here, and then he's walking down the road with two guys that are on their way to Emmaus. And about the time they sit down to dinner and start to break bread, and boom, Jesus disappears again, and he's gone. And they're just like, what in the world? Can you imagine what those 50 days were like for those disciples? So everything in their world was turned upside down, and their emotions were all out of whack. Their hearts were in turmoil. Then the same day at evening, the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and saith unto them, peace be unto you. Really, Jesus? Now you're going to come say peace out, y'all? Really? You have been flipping us one way or another for weeks now, and we've been trying to process all of this, and you just show up and walk in the room. You just walk through the wall and like, peace, y'all. Everything's good. No, it's not. Everything's not good. When he had so said, he showed them his hands. He said, y'all want to check out my side? Look at that big scar I got right there. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. So they've gone from fear to glad within just a matter of seconds. Emotions are just crisscrossing all over the place. Jesus understands this and knows, and he says to them again, peace be unto you. As my Father hath sent me, even so I send you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and saith unto them, receive the Holy Ghost. I want you to know that Jesus realized his disciples had the breath knocked out of them. Life had just knocked them off their feet. And he said, I need to breathe into your soul right now. I need to minister healing to your life right now. He restored their soul because they were just out of it. They had tried to process all of this, and it was way more than they could handle. Oh, but he wasn't done. The word that is used in that sense when he breathed on them literally means a current of air or a blast of air or a breeze that blows like the Spirit moves even the rational soul. So about the time that he's kind of helped them catch their breath. Have you ever been running before and you ran and ran and ran until you felt like you couldn't run anymore, and then you had to stop and some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but keep eating, you will. So they're kind of, okay, I think I got my breath. I think I can do this. All of a sudden now they feel better in their spirit, and they're kind of revived a little bit, and they're like, okay, Jesus is here. Everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be all right. And so they start traveling with him for another few days, and then they just go walking out to the Mount of Olives. That wasn't out of the ordinary. Brother Charles, they went there to pray. They went to the Mount of Olives all the time. And they get to the Mount of Olives and like, wow, Jesus is probably going to sit down. He's going to start teaching us again. He's going to do something for us here. And he says, hey guys, see y'all, I'm out of here. And up, and he goes. And it says they keep standing there looking in the clouds like, okay, he's been doing this for a while, y'all. He'll appear, and he disappears, and then he'll reappear. So just give him a moment. He's going to reappear. He might be over there in the trees. He might be off of here. Y'all just be looking around. There was 500 people up there looking around. And finally, 2 angels appear and say, what you guys looking at? Well, what are y'all looking for? Well, we're trying to find Jesus. We're waiting for the next appearing act. We know he's coming pretty soon. Any second now, he's probably going to show back up and say, all right, here I am again. I haven't left you because I told you I would never leave you. I would never forsake you. You ever been in something in life and felt like Jesus forsook you? You felt like he did leave you? Where are you, God? Where? At every point of the circumstance you're reaching out. God, where? Nothing. Nothing. You're like a dying man in a river that's drowning, and a piece of pine straw comes by, and you reach out and grab the piece. Anything. Oh, come on, God, where are you? You said you would be there. You said you would help. You said that you would comfort. You said you would strengthen. You said you would put things back together. It's all falling apart, and I don't know where you are. But as he was leaving, he said, if you guys will go back to a room down in Jerusalem and just wait for me there. He said, I'm going to return to you. I'm going to just come in a different way, in a different form. He said, I'm going to return to you as the comforter. And he said, it's going to be called the Holy Ghost. Okay? He said, but I'm just giving you a little heads up. He said, as I'm disappearing and leaving, you guys have a good time. Get on back to Jerusalem and wait until the promise of the Father comes. They're standing there and their hearts are crushed. They're like, oh my God. He said, I'm leaving and going to be gone for a long time. He's not coming back. What do we do? They probably stood there for a while. I don't think they just turned around immediately and they're headed right back to Jerusalem. 500 people, all kinds of ideas were flying. Finally, they were like, all right, guess we're going to go back to Jerusalem. Well, 380 didn't make it there. Only 120 made it to the upper room. 380 of them fell off by the way somewhere and decided, you know what, this thing's just getting to be like a circus act. I can't deal with this. I don't believe it's going to help me at all anyway. I think I'll just go on about my day and do what I was doing before and just kind of go back to the routine that I had before. Can I encourage you tonight? Your spirit may be crushed. Life may be just dumping on you right now. Circumstances may be way out of your control and you're like, God, where are you? But I want you to know that there's a promise coming from the Father, and he's going to give it to you, and he's going to give it to you tonight. Somebody shout, he's going to give it to me tonight. Come on, shout it like you believe it. On the day of Pentecost, 120 followers of the shepherd were in the upper room, and suddenly there was a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the house where they were sitting. There appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of a fire. I'm here to tell you, God said, hey, you may be down, you may be out, you may feel like the enemy's knocked the life and the breath out of you, but God said, I'm coming to put the breath back into your soul. And he breathed into those disciples. He breathed into his own mother. He breathed into the lives of those 120. And I'm glad to tell you today, he didn't stop at 120, because before the day was over, it was 3,000. And a few days later, it was 5,000. And then 12,000. Then they said, we can't count anymore. He just kept pouring it out because God wants to put the breath back into your life. He restoreth my soul. I'm thankful for the day that Jesus breathed into my soul and into my spirit. Stand together with me. Your marriage may be coming apart at the seams right now. Your children may be causing you more problems than you ever imagined. Your job may be beating the life out of you day after day. Your finances may be sucking the breath out of you right now, and you think, I don't know how we're going to put food on the table by next week. I don't know if we'll be able to pay all of the bills. Your broken relationship with God has done everything it can to suck the breath out of you. I can't believe that it's already been 4 years that a little 5-letter word hit the world called COVID. And it literally took the breath out of humanity. Physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually. It was an attack of the enemy, not just to take bodies, because the devil can't kill. I said the devil can't kill you. Some of you don't believe me right now. It's all right. Because here's what he did. He weakened your faith. He weakened your faith. You prayed for people and they died. You prayed over circumstances and it didn't work out. Your job, whole situation had to change because of a 5-letter word that hit our world. And by the end of all of that, the distress that had come upon our world, that is still affecting our world in 2024 and will continue to affect our world until Jesus comes, I believe. By the time that it was over and we had tried to move on, fear had taken over the lives of many of the people of our world. Trouble, storms, pain, bad circumstances, hurts, frustrating situations, doctor's reports, tragedy. I could go on and on and on tonight of all the things and the ways that the enemy tries to knock the breath out of you. Circumstances and situations that just come from this phone call, from that text message, from this thing on the news. And after a while, it's like, oh my God, this is too much. I can't deal with this. I can't handle this. But I want you to know that even though the enemy's greatest weapon is to knock the breath out of you, the devil cannot kill you. These keys were taken away from him at Calvary. The resurrection of Jesus Christ gave us proof that the enemy can't take your life. Some of you are standing here right now and you're saying, I don't know if I can make it till Sunday. I know. I've talked with many of you this week. My wife has talked with many of you this week. If I could draw a picture, there would be a piece of thread hanging, and you would just be holding on to that piece of thread. You're like, this is where I feel like I am. Life is just, nothing is going the way that it's supposed to go. Circumstances are all turned upside down. I don't know if I'm coming or if I'm going. My job situation is crazy. The things I'm dealing with in my family is just beyond what I can handle in my mind and in my spirit. Can I tell somebody today that it's the enemy's greatest weapon? He just wants to knock the breath out of you. Between 30 and 180 seconds of oxygen deprivation, you'll lose consciousness. I've watched some of you over the past weeks. You've lost consciousness. You're here in body. That's about it. You just show up. I'm here. Preacher, at least you can check it off. I got to the house of God. I'm here. 1 minute, brain cells begin dying. After 3 minutes, neurons suffer more extensive damage. Lasting brain damage is done. You see, when the enemy knocks you down, Casey, then he just wants to keep you there. And if we, the people of God, don't do what we're supposed to do, and we just leave you laying out there on the field, well, I'm going through stuff too. I got stuff going on in my life. I mean, things have really turned upside down for me as well. I know you think you're really going through something, but you don't know what I'm going through, and so I'm just going to tend to me, and I hope you make it over there. The Spirit is asking you tonight, where's your brother? Where's your sister? Why didn't they make it to church tonight like you did? Well, maybe it was just some kind of a circumstance beyond their control. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was another blow. Knock them down again. Knock them down. After 5 minutes, death is imminent. Every head bowed, every eye closed. Can I tell you right now that some of you, death is imminent? I said death is imminent. I'm not talking about physically. I'm not saying that the enemy is coming, he's going to kill you physically and you're not going to live till Sunday. I'm talking about what's happening inside of you. Spiritually, the breath's been knocked out of you. You made it here tonight, and I'm so grateful that you did, because God had a word for you in Psalm 23:3. He restoreth my soul. I can feel it already. I hope you can feel it right where you're standing. There's a breath of God that is just blowing into this place right now. The breath of God is blowing in this place right now, and it's just moving right to where you are. It's on purpose. It's not something that's just made up. Go ahead, think about it. Feel that. Just feel that. With your eyes closed, why don't you just lift your hands right now and say, God, breathe on me. Come on, can you say that to him? God, breathe on me. Come on, God, breathe on me. Say it.